Welcome. Thanks, Tona. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, everyone. Hi, hi. I gotta get some music for next time.
I can add some music for you as we wait.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Awesome. We're just gonna give it a couple more minutes so everyone can come in, and then we'll get started. Great, yeah. If we could, I always like to see where everyone's from. So if you can pop in the chat and say hi and just what area you're in. I'm in upstate New York. It's always cool to see where everyone's from. Ah, DC to LA. That is awesome. Rainy Seattle, San Antonio, South Lake Tahoe. Perfect. We still have some people entering the room, so I'm going to give it another minute. Awesome. Chicago, Arizona. Yeah, and Juanita had just stated too, feel free to have your camera off. It's not mandatory to have your camera on. You know, it's Friday. I'm sure we're all really busy. But this is just an opportunity to connect directly and ask open-ended questions. It's going to be a pretty informal chat, just kind of discussing, you know, my new role here at Latinas in Tech and kind of just how I'll partner with the community going forward. I think we can get started. We have we have a good amount of people here. So again, please feel free to just relax and listen, and then I'll open up the floor in a bit. I'm just going to start with an introduction about myself, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the talent pool and all the exciting things you have as a member with the talent pool. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and just kind of open up the floor and explain what the purpose of these lunch and learns are, and then have Q&A or any suggestions at the end. This is being recorded too, so we can look back at that in the future as well. So just to get started, welcome, welcome again. This is our first lunch and learn community office hours with Lit's internal recruiter. That is me. So just to kind of go over a little bit more about why I was brought onto the team. I was brought on the team to connect companies with our amazing pool of candidates from the Latinas in Tech community. That's all of you. And I'm basically here to empower, support, and guide you all to find more leadership roles and life-changing career opportunities. And I'm going to be collaborating with the internal team to just create the best experience for both our sponsored companies and you all as a community. Some more information about me. I was born and raised in Queens. Now I reside in upstate New York. I am Ecuadorian, Puerto Rican, and Nicaraguan, and I have been recruiting for about 5 years. This is just a little quote. When I did onboard kind of what I gave to the team, I was just really excited and grateful to be in this space at Latinas in Tech, where I can connect more Latinas like myself to finding life-changing opportunities. I'm really passionate about networking and helping people find their roles. And I'm going to go ahead and just tell my story about how I found Latinas in Tech. I'm sure we all have that story about how we found it and kind of how we connected with everyone. For me, I was in tech for a while, and then I realized there wasn't that much of a community, but this was in the beginning of tech. I was at companies without ERG groups, and I was just at companies where I felt a little bit isolated. And then fast forward to as I grew in my career, I started learning more about ERG groups, and just groups of being able to connect with people. And one of my ERG groups was a partner with Latinas in Tech. And that's kind of where I was able to connect and realize that representation really matters within these spaces, because it makes you feel a lot more fulfilled, and it just makes a huge difference. And that's kind of how I found out about Latinas in Tech. And I did do one of their programs as well that taught me a lot about imposter syndrome, or just really honing in on all my skills and learning how to be empowered to use them. And that's how I found my role here. Unfortunately, I was impacted by a layoff, but then used those skills that I gained with those programs and kind of worked my way to discuss with the community how I can be a part of Latinas in Tech. So I want to go ahead and move on to just discussing the overall items that you have as members of Latinas in Tech. And one of the biggest things that I'm going to do here in my role too is just making sure that you all are using your membership to either secure your next role or secure a really good partnership with an organization, or just to make a really good connection, because connections, once you make a good one, they spread out to a lot more stuff. So one of the items that I do want to make sure, maybe an action item after this chat, is just looking into your portal and then taking a peek. There's always so much changing within Lit Recruit, whether it's new companies or new jobs being posted. And completing your profile to make it easier for companies to reach out to you is really important. And another thing to remember is that you are able to message recruiters and companies directly on the Lit job board, which is awesome. And what I like to kind of tell our members is these companies that reach out to Latinas in Tech come to us because they are ready to hire that diverse talent, and they're actively searching for it. And yes, you can definitely message people on LinkedIn, or you can shoot an email to recruiters, but the companies that are in our actual portal have already had that conversation with Latinas in Tech, and they're actively looking for diverse talent. So it's really important to utilize that messaging system. And then just going to specific events that offer resume help and immediate connections to companies, you're able to find more connections with those companies when you go to these specific events. And registering our mentorship program, and also connecting with chapters and other community members. Again, finding that representation and all of those events is going to help you within your job search too. And then just some quick links. Latinasintech.org login is right here on the slide. And then we also have, for technical issues, to email support@latinasintech.org. Now I'm going to take a minute here to pause and kind of just overall open up the floor. Again, this is just a conversation with you all. And the purpose of these office hours is just to have a safe space to discuss how you're feeling in your job search, and to work as a community to help you find roles. So Latinas in Tech is here to help you. I'm here to help you. These are some conversational topic questions that I've put here to help. But again, this is a space for you all to answer any questions that you might have. So again, feel free to be off camera, or put yourself off mute, or ask in the chat, and I'm happy to help.
I can start. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Okay, perfect.
Happy Friday and good afternoon.
Happy Friday. So first I want to say thank you for this platform. I'm thinking, for me, first and foremost, one of the challenges that I'm experiencing, even with getting referred into tech companies, is I have a strong background in ed with technology, but I want to transfer out and go into tech that serves the ed services all throughout our government agencies. And I'm realizing that I'm having that disconnect, or I'm having trouble because they probably think I'm not tech enough. And so I've taken, like, for example, some Coursera courses in PM and Agile and Scrum. What other recommendations would you have to upskill or to even reach out further? Because I have 13 years of experience using tech, but maybe not in the eyes or the lens exactly or precisely as a tech company.
Yeah, thank you for your insight. Yeah, honestly, that poses a really big challenge, right? Because a lot of people going into the education field, and when you said ed, I'm just confirming it's education, and you have that background of technology. So I'm sure you've either used computer or technologies in the education space, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So it was mostly like compliance with districts and helping administrators.
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge with that is if you look at the tech ecosystem as a whole, there's so many companies. So my recommendation, again, you're doing all the right things, which is taking the extra courses as you're looking in your search. My recommendation to that would be immediately just doing a quick Google search and saying, okay, education technology companies. Even if you just Google that, there's usually a big web of organizations that you'll see, and it can sometimes look really overwhelming. Whether it's education, or if anybody else is looking not in education in any other market, you can put marketing technology companies, education technology companies, finance technology companies. And once you look at that big ecosystem, you see so many companies. And I think the best thing to do is kind of stay within your lane, especially if you're going to switch. Maybe since you have education and technology experience, just saying, okay, this is what I have, and Googling that and looking at companies under that ecosphere that say, okay, this is education technology. These are companies that align with the skills that I have. And then if you're making an even larger switch, all the things that you stated that you're doing correctly, which is taking Coursera courses. One thing that I would recommend is when you are reaching out to either recruiters, or if you're reaching out to hiring managers directly, letting them know, like, I have this experience in the tech space, and not being worried, because sometimes it may stop you from reaching out because you're like, I think they might think that I don't have that experience because I'm in education. But just stating, I know my experience aligns more in education, but I'm looking to make the switch, and I have experience that is transferable. And just knowing and stating that your skills are transferable shows the hiring manager that you already know that. And they will be more open to saying, okay, they already know they have the skills, they're looking to transfer it, and I'm a little bit more open to speaking to them, rather than if you don't state that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely, because I didn't do that. So I just kind of showed it on my resume and cover letter, and thought that could be explainable enough. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, when you think about hiring managers too, if you're like, hey, I know when you make that initial connection to reach out to a recruiter or a hiring manager, hey, I know my background really focuses on education, but I do have transferable skills and then you just show, according to the job description, my transferable skills are boom, boom, boom. And then if a hiring manager is reading that, they already know you have those skills, rather than just reading your resume and saying like, maybe it might translate, maybe it won't. But if you're stating the skills, these are my transferable skills to your job post, it's super helpful for them to be like, okay, she or he or anyone that's applying knows what they're talking about, and they're making the transition, but they're also making themselves known in that transition. I think we have a hand up. I see Desiree.
Yes, I figured because I found this link in Latinas in Tech. I don't know. I'll ask you, Miss Alex. Are you okay with some of us seasoned folks giving some feedback as well?
Yes, of course. This is, again, a safe space to kind of just discuss everything. So your feedback is so appreciated and open to it. So you have the mic.
Cool beans. So I was a part of the layoff. So in regards to, I'm a principal product manager and in the technical space, and I came for many of y'all, I switched. I'm a second career, basically. I was a biomedical engineer in academics, and I did bioinformatics in epidemiology. I say that to say that it happens. It can happen for you, meaning you can come from a field that is not tech and still see yourself there. And also you can still be any brown or black or whatever and still see yourself there. The big thing of whenever you don't have any projects on your resume, this is the time where some of y'all have to be comfortable with doing stuff for free, meaning, and I know that doesn't sound fun, and I know it's not very equitable, but these are the times where you can even ask, hey, I see that you have this project. I'm wanting to get a little bit more experience. Can I possibly shadow? Can I do this pro bono? And there's even ways where you can go on Upwork to do so as well, because you really want those experiences, because it's going to really give you the space to be able to speak on the knowledge that you learn. Because a lot of the times, sorry, by the way, I have vacuums going on in the background, but that will—
No, you're okay. We can hear you nice and clear. Don't worry.
Okay, cool. But it will give you the breath to be able to have those conversations. I also would you should be comfortable, no matter what job you're looking for, with understanding the space of tech, meaning get the one of my favorite Bibles of interviewing is called the DevOps Handbook. And the reason why I like this book is not because it teaches you code and anything like that. It teaches you how the world of tech works, like from the beginning of the end to the end. Because in all these interviews, you want to have a breadth of understanding. Even if you're new to the space, they're going to want to know that you know something. So being able to have that dialogue and have it comfortably will be an asset as well.
100%. And what you just stated is super important to have. And the key word that I heard is being able to have that dialogue, and having that knowledge about what goes on in the tech space sets you apart from someone that's just like, I'm going to transition into the tech space, but I have an educational background and that's it. But knowing how the tech ecosystem works as a whole really points you out, and it gives you a step up in the right direction as well, because you understand how it works, you know how to have that dialogue. And again, even if you're not into DevOps or you're not into any of those technical aspects, just even knowing what, off the top of your head, SQL, or just saying like these words and key terms literally will make you stand apart from everyone else as well.
It really will. That, and utilize Medium, right?
Yeah.
The reason why I tell people to use Medium instead of your YouTubes and stuff like that are either looking over all these textbooks. Textbooks are helpful, but you want to understand how people who are already in the field feel about it, how they break it down into actionable things. These articles are written by average day humans, and you want to be able to talk about this dialogue as if you've already done it, right? So even if you were to make your own doggone project, right? Saying, except for example, if you want to understand product a little bit more, how do you understand the person that you're building for? Like, how do you start to get your brain to adapt into thinking algorithmically? Being an engineer is just a recipe. All of us are engineers. If you cook in the kitchen, you are our engineer. You just have to find a way to use that way of thinking into an actionable step-by-step solution. So get yourself ready for that type of dialogue, because in our interviews, as y'all know, tech can be all the way up to 6 interviews in one day. So getting yourself comfortable with it and like it's a random everyday conversation is very helpful. It's helpful, and it also gives you the insights to say, oh, I don't know what that means. You can look it up. These are all different things that are really, really helpful for you to be able to consistently learn in these spaces.
110%. Thank you so much for that sentiment. Just information is key. Knowledge is key. And especially if you're looking to transition, just absorb as much as you can, whether, again, Medium is a great, and for those, we can put in the chat, the Medium website, it's literally just blogs of people with their own experiences. I know LinkedIn has the same aspect of people writing their own blogs, but listening into other people's stories, or even following creators or people that transition into tech on LinkedIn or any of these avenues is super helpful as well, because you can see their story and how their trajectory advanced, and then you can kind of mimic that as well. I think we have another hand up, Emily, and then I'll go onto the chat too, because I do see some questions as well. Emily, did I see your hand up?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can hear you.
Oh, great. My laptop does not have a camera, so I have to like pull it off. I have to like plug it in every time. So
Totally fine. We can hear you perfectly.
great. So one thing for me for some of these questions is like I've been working in like campaign and political and nonprofit spaces for a while. And I really want to switch to like a tech space or like a tech company or a climate organization or something different. I've done a lot of work in the political space, but I'm finding it to be more and more like suffocating. And with everyone being so polarized in the political space, it's just becoming more and more hostile. And so I'm looking to make a serious transition into some other space that's going to be better, more suitable for me. And so from my barriers, I'm experiencing just like I'm pretty sure it's like because I've worked on these campaigns, I've worked in specific nonprofits, that they see me as a liability because of maybe some of that partisanship that is part of my resume. And I'm pretty sure that's why I've been getting a lot of rejection letters. And also there's a lot of with the layoffs and stuff, it's been hard to find something that works for me. But I've been looking at different job places. I've been on Udemy a lot to do classes. So I'm learning, I have basic skills of like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Python, but how do I make those better? And so that's kind of what I've been kind of focusing on skills in the meantime. And I've done some non-technical stuff like extra time management and managers skills and stuff like that, so I can be a better communicator. Desiree, I'm looking at so I'm a data and geospatial analyst person. So I do a lot of data related stuff. The geospatial is just more mapping and less of the generic data. So I've done both for the 5+ years I've been out of school. So I'm just like looking to move into just a regular job that's stable too.
I would say look
Awesome.
into, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Desiree.
If you're studying trends and you're studying space, things like that, I would say look into data analysts. Also look into, because I would also say look into UXR, user research, because you'd be surprised how they're needing people like you. In regards to wanting to be in something that's not as psychologically gymnastic like, I'm not going to tell you tech is not that way. Many of us brown and black folks or brown presenting, black folk presenting, you're going to always have a different experience than your white counterpart. And
Of course.
it's not to be like, this is good or bad. It's just saying, I'll be honest, my worst racial experiences probably have happened in tech, because you got to think these industries were created making sure that we weren't there. So it's not going to go away per se. What I would say is get yourself prepared for it in a way that is actionable, and remind yourself that you bring it home in the pocketbook, right? So remind yourself of that. And then also, because if you're coming from the political spectrum, you understand personalities differently than most people. That's your weapon right there. So use that as a thing for growth, as how people need you. Meaning, if you're thinking about even Microsoft, biggest thing, their largest client is the government. If you're thinking about Amazon, them picking up so many different companies, really understanding their people, how people move, what their positive user stories, that's all based upon your research. So you are definitely needed in these spaces, just more so find a way to utilize your background to be an asset. Don't look at it as, oh, well, no one wants to touch me. No, make it to where you're pointing out the uncomfortable things in the room, to where you understand a space that no one else can understand just because of the space you came from.
Right. And I've also experienced, it's been my experience with discrimination is more so on disability than it has been on the color of my skin or the gender that I present. Unfortunately, but you know, I still push, and I'm not going to give up just because of those, you know, things. But it's been a wild ride. So, and it's hard. Obviously, it's not great for when you get rejection letters, but I think everyone here is probably doing their best. So
Yeah, I mean,
thank
I've
you.
had a lot of rejections and I got Google and Microsoft on my resume. Sis, you ain't it. You will not be it. Do not internalize that to make it seem like you aren't enough. You're enough. And also your disabilities are not their problem until you work there, by the way. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't or should mention it. I'm just saying that it's not their business. So take with that as you must.
Thank you.
110%. And Emily, and thank you so much for all this back and forth. This is so awesome. And it's really important to have these spaces with these conversations. Emily, one thing that I can tell you too, once you kind of really define where you want to go and your titles, it'll make it a lot less daunting. But one of the things that, and the caveat that I do want to say, especially me being in recruiting, in the couple of years, in just a small amount of years, titles will change. So just because you see one that doesn't align, just kind of do a quick search of different titles, because there's new titles in this tech space on a daily basis. So just being able to say, okay, this is something that I align with is going to be really helpful for you. And then I feel like even if you're in education, if you're in tech, if you're in government, all of the skills that you have are transferable as long as you just take a second to say, this is what I'm confident in doing. And you say, I'm going to apply to these roles no matter what, because I'm confident in the work that I have. And you got to find that North Star and say, this is the title that I am looking for. This is what I want to do. And then just sell yourself on that point. So this was awesome. I think I do see 2 more hands up. I think Vivian might have been next.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for the discussion, everyone. My question is around best practice for immigrants who still hold a visa status. I don't know if it's the case for many other people. If it's not, I guess I can take the question offline, but I was wondering, if you have any specific strategies in finding jobs and especially figuring out which companies give support to H-1Bs and eventually green cards.
Yeah, that's an awesome question, Vivian. We have some resources within our internal community that I can share with you after the call. And we can kind of just take this question offline, and I'll definitely share that for you so you can have more insights to that.
Thank you.
And then Priscilla, I think we had a hand up too.
Muting myself here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you. So yeah, thank you for, I guess this gathering has been like very helpful to understand. I come from kind of like a similar situation, wanting to pivot into technology. I've been working, I'm a chemical engineer, so I've been working in chemicals for my entire career, like 15 plus years. And I decided to join tech because I live in Nashville. I'm actually on a move to Denver, but a few of these different locations aren't as good for what is my current industry, plus being like very, very male dominated in the chemical industry. I've had a few situations that I'm trying to, perhaps go into an industry that seems more diverse and welcoming for foreigners, females, younger folks. So I was just wondering, I guess I sent that question when I was registering, but what would be like, recommended approaches for specifically people in sales and commercial and business development to pivot from different industries, such as the one I'm coming from, chemicals, and I guess, look for similar careers in the tech space.
Yeah. And Well, the things that you are doing right is that you understand the background that you have, right? And I think in order to kind of pivot into a new role, the most important thing is just understanding your skill sets and how you can be really strong in saying, this is what I know how to do. And then applying to those roles with that confidence, that same confidence that you know you've been in this industry for a long time. So being able to just reach out to those either hiring managers or apply onto those roles and understand, again, it goes back to that conversation of really understanding sales as a whole, understanding the tech ecosystem as a whole, understanding whatever role that you want to transition to, really honing in on what these skill sets are that I need or that I don't have, and then being able to say, okay, I'm going to apply with the confidence that I know I have because I've researched this organization or I've researched this title and I've researched the skill sets of whatever you want to transition to. Once you have that available, that's when you're gonna be able to have more confidence to applying to those roles. Because I think the biggest fear of transitioning into a role is you thinking like, what if I get into the role and I don't understand the role or I'm just not qualified enough. But being able to say, I've researched this and I'm confident because I've worked in this industry for so long, is going to be your biggest tool when you're applying for the role.
Okay, I wanted to say, I guess I actually feel like I'm like halfway into this process. I've been applying for several different roles, but it feels like because I can't pass through that, some of the requirements of, like a certain role having, posted required, minimum 1 or 5 or even more years of experience in like a SaaS type of, sales role or whatever. How can I make myself compete with not having those things? And I guess another part of this question is, applying and having confidence for that. It wouldn't be the issue. I also understand my transferable skills and my value in whatever business I get. The point is, once you're applying with, several other people, what would be the approaches here for, like beating, I guess, I'm not sure if this is the best word, but
No problem.
passing the algorithm that will essentially write me off because of not having certain things. So I guess this is more like, the question, how do I, get in front, how do I get interviews with, a different type of industry from the one I come from if I don't have on paper years of experience in their industry, but I don't think the other, 10 to 15 years experience plus that I had would just not be able to be used once pivoting into a new industry.
Okay. Priscilla, one thing that I do want to ask, when you see, let's say if you see a job that says you need 1 to 10 years of experience to apply, does that ever stop you from applying or do you still apply to those roles?
I still do.
Okay, so what I would say in that situation, because what I'm hearing from you is it's not a confidence, like you're more just like, yes, I do apply, but how do you stand out from the hundreds of other applications that might have a lot more experience than you, correct?
That's more on that path. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think the next step would be kind of just changing your strategy a bit to make yourself stand out a little bit more. Building really deep connections within people in the organization that you're looking for. So let's say if it's an organization and you're applying for the role, building deeper connections with people by networking or just messaging them and saying, again, I have this experience and I'm super confident that I'd be the right fit is going to be really helpful in those situations because you're going to make yourself stand out from those people that have the skill sets and are applying and not reaching out to the people from those companies. So it's just about, okay, maybe if you're getting rejections or if you're not getting a call back or you're not getting to the next stage, it's about changing your strategy and understanding this isn't working right now because I'm not sticking out. How could I stick out? Whether it's, again, connections and going to events that maybe the company that you're applying for is hosting and showing, virtually or in person, and just making those deep connections is going to be super helpful because even if you don't have all those years of experience, you still are, one, willing to learn. Two, you understand the job completely because they can already see you're applying to that role and you know the job. And then three, you're making a deeper connection with those people that, again, could be your future employers or employees or coworkers. So you're kind of making those connections. And I think just changing your strategy and adding on and constantly thinking, how can I stick out, is going to be super helpful in your situation.
Okay, so then I hear about networking and everything, because fairly difficult to something I have been doing, which is reaching out to the recruiting team on LinkedIn or other virtual spaces, and still probably not sticking out that way. But I guess it's a good thing once I complete my move into the city that I'm going to stay long term. Then I hear you saying, like, looking for in-person networking from the companies that I'm looking for there and everything. And I guess this is one that is still virtual networking. I feel like we're in all of these different places, nationally, probably internationally too. But like making myself known and available here to network and to offer kind of like my background and experience to exchange. I guess that's part of the initiative. But thank you so much.
Yeah, 110%. And all of us that are in here, please feel free to, connect with each other. We are all already members in the Latinas in Tech atmosphere. So just connecting with each other and making those connections, because you never know what if in the future it's like, hey, I saw you at this community event, and you never know how these experiences can change and give you a leg up in the job search as well. I do see a hand up, Evelyn.
Hi, yes. I have two questions. So one is the main thing I'm seeing is like, and it goes back to what you were talking about, like job titles have changed. So like right now I'm kind of trying to see if I can go into like a product marketing role. I'm in digital account management, right? So I have been shadowing like on the product team here at my current company. And I'm just kind of trying to get like that hybrid role that merges product with marketing. So I think a lot of times I'm having a difficulty because I get advice where people are like, well, you do have that experience because you're like shadowing within your company, but then my title doesn't like reflect that because it's not actually what it is. So like, I guess I'm asking like, what is your advice in terms of like updating your title on your resume to be able to kind of try to get your foot in the door that way?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, with titles changing, it'll kind of be like you're in that crossroads, right? Where you kind of are a fit for it, but then there's some aspects that are missing because it's not that full title that you're applying your role for, correct?
Right, correct.
Yeah. So I think again, for that, it's if you're applying to these specific roles that have a title that sounds like your job description, but some things are missing, I would say to just really understand that title, Google it a little bit more to kind of see, what are the job aspects of that title. And then once you learn it, and you have that company that you are applying for, you can let them know, hey, I have these skill sets, and it's kind of voicing that you are definitely prepared for that role, and just letting them know, I have these skill sets. It doesn't match up. Well, not to say that it doesn't match up, but in your mind, that it doesn't match up 100%, but being able to know, I have these skill sets and they seem to match up with exactly what you're posting, no matter what the title is, just really understanding like, hey, this is what I want to go for next. And again, finding that North Star and applying either way.
And then, but like in the actual like documentation for like my title, like right now, if I'm like, so if my title's associate director of account management, right? If I were to like add on something that's like specific to product, since I am doing that kind of in a way because I'm shadowing on the product team. Is that kind of like frowned upon, do you think, as a recruiter? Like if you're just, I guess, adding to your actual job title on your resume and or LinkedIn?
No, I don't think that's frowned upon at all. I know I've seen, you know, in the past, people would say they're doing IT shadowing or marketing shadowing and product shadowing. And with me sitting in calls with hiring managers and them kind of discussing, shadowing is still you learning the ins and outs of that position and also just being there on a day-to-day basis. So I know I've seen people even do sales shadowing when they're shadowing sales calls. As hiring managers, when they're looking at that, that's not frowned upon. It's more just like they're looking to transition and they're interested into that space. So showing that you're interested in transitioning into another space is really important. And it's hard, right? Because you want to showcase that on your resume, but also you just don't want to get the titles jumbled up. So just being able to be really clear on what you've done and what your knowledge is. So let's say you've shadowed in the past, maybe on your skill sets, saying these are my additional skill sets. So anything that you've shadowed, you can put it and say, this is what I've done. So, and just be specific so they can see what you've shadowed and the things that you've learned as well. So it's not looked down upon. It's just really important to write your experience no matter what. So just put all the skills and tools that you have. Don't say, oh, maybe I won't put shadowing because it might be something that no one's interested in. Put down all the skills and everything that you've tried.
Got it. And then my second question was just in terms of like, if you're applying to a company, like there are certain companies that I'm like, oh, I really would like to work for this company, and they might have multiple positions. I have a friend who has been in kind of the similar situation, but she did a fellowship and she's like in with a specific company. So she's like networking from within.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's been told that like, if you're, I guess like serial applying, like applying to multiple positions within the company, you're kind of like, you know, like disregarded because you're not like focusing on one. But at the same time, like on my side, I'm looking at it as like the more I apply, the better chance I have. So do you have any insight on that?
110%. I know we've all been there. I think everyone in this room has been there where they just start rage applying because they're like, I had a bad day at work. I'm gonna apply to like 10 positions and see what happens. But from what she might be saying on a recruiter's aspect, right? All recruiters have an applicant tracking system. So we kind of had an inside look. When you're like serial or rage applying, or you're applying to multiple roles, sometimes if you're not tracking that, you're not even thinking of that. You're just applying and you're just like, I'm going to apply, I'm going to hit apply. Maybe you're doing multitasking and just applying to a bunch of different roles. On the recruiter aspect and the recruiter end, we can see your name and all the roles that you apply to, right? So if internally we see Evelyn, and I'm just saying your name because I'm speaking directly to you, but internally, if we see Evelyn and we see she applied for a sales operations manager, and then she applied for a technical support specialist, and then also applied for a customer success manager and a marketing manager. From the recruiter side, we can see your name and everything that you've applied to. Once we see that it doesn't really align, especially if you're applying to one specific company, that's going to automatically throw the recruiter off, because they're going to say they've intentionally applied to this company to like 5 different roles. Maybe on a candidate aspect, it might look like I'm really excited and I just want to get my foot in the door at the company. But on the recruiter end, it looks like you're not sure of what role you actually want. So it's super important to be intentional with your job search, especially if you're doing a company that you really, really super care about. And you're like, this is my dream company, or this is a company I've always wanted to be at. Because once you get into their system, you're there for quite a while in that applicant tracking system. You're there for a long time. So you want to make sure, and even if you apply to multiple positions, if it's similar, like if it's all in one category, then that's fine, because it shows that you have initiative for that one category. But once it starts going to different job aspects, the recruiter immediately will see that. And me in the past, if I see a whole bunch of different, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door, it's going to say that once you become an employee at that role, you're not going to know where to start. You're not going to really know what to do. So I would say when it comes to job searching, the one thing I need to definitely make notice here is being intentional, especially when you have a company that you'd be really disappointed if they rejected you, because you want to make sure that you're in that candidate pool. And even if you get rejected, you can apply, but maybe just not to a whole bunch of different roles, because that on the recruiter end, we can see and notice all of that.
Got it. Okay, that's great. That's good to hear, because I'm always kind of just like, I don't know, like I feel like I'd have a better chance, but yeah, that's definitely great to hear from a recruiter side.
Yeah, and just remember that when you apply to a role, your name is going to be in that system, and you've already submitted your application, so you're going to be in there. And even if it's like a year or two and you apply again, we're still going to see your application from a year ago, because we have your initial one. Even if we reject you, we still know that you applied to the role.
Be there. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? No, I think we're good. I think the chat was going. Hopefully I'm like scrolling up on the chat. It looks like we have a whole bunch of different questions and engagement. But if there's anything that anyone has now, I'd like to cover that. No, we're good. All right. Well, I'm definitely going to continue forward a little bit and just
Say
open
one
up
thing
again.
for the ladies who are trying to. Oh, hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I do want to say another thing that could probably help a lot of the ladies in the chat when trying to figure out like where to go in the tech space. So in Coursera, they open up for 1 week free for you to take different courses. And so that's what helped me to do all of the 3. Maybe I was like a little bit of an overachiever, but it's because I wanted like really get this quick so that at least it's on my resume for visibility and then just send out to more positions. But I noticed like there's data analysts, there's all kinds of different roles there in tech, and some that are really reputable is IBM and Google that have incredibly good courses that you can take, and it will help with your LinkedIn. And that way you can be able to kind of see if you like that kind of realm or not. There's cybersecurity, there's all kinds of things, and you can do it for free for a week. And you can finish it for a week if you need to too, like several. So that's a suggestion as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jennifer. And that goes back to what Desiree had said before about really being knowledgeable about the space. That gives you the confidence in both your interviews and your applications, because you're learning all these skills, you're taking these courses, and you're advancing your learning so that you have more confidence when you're speaking to recruiters, when you're speaking in the tech space, when you're speaking in community events, or just networking in general. Once you have that knowledge, that's something that no one can take away from you. So it's super important to use all those resources. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jennifer. Great. I'm gonna take a peek at the meeting chat. But again, these last, we have about 12 minutes, is kind of just gonna be some final questions and answers I can give you all, and just suggestions for future lunch and learns, right? This is our first one. So thank you so much for spending your Friday with me. This has been fantastic. We've got a lot of connections in the chat. We've got a lot of questions that we'll definitely get back to you all on this. But if anyone has any suggestions or questions on the Latinas in Tech member platform, or anything that I can specifically help you with, you can either put it in the chat or just shoot your recommendations, or take yourself off mute and see what you'd like to see in this space. We're kind of building this space for you all. So everyone who has participated, anything in the future that you'd like to see in these either lunch and learns or just for recruiting in general, we're kind of here, and we definitely want to hear your mentions.
I think a big thing would be to utilize people who have been in these spaces for a sec to do a lunch and learn, to talk about the ins and outs. Also possibly things that talks about the different journeys that Latinos may face. For example, the immigrant experience is completely different. The person with accents, different experience. Being Black presenting, different experience. So really honing in on those little like hard topics, because I think what I've noticed of being in big tech is people don't talk about it. But then when you have that one disruptor, a person with a big mouth, you have all these replies coming in like, oh my God, I felt that too. So that, and then also how to deal with microaggression, because I think before I got into this space, I did not know how bad tech can really be. And I think preparing people that are coming into this space, or even giving tools to people who are already in this space to know that they're not alone. Sometimes being the loud and outspoken is not always, because I've been that person, and I've been the person who had to sit in the backgrounds, finding what tack to take and understanding the space you're in. Because as much as we all want to be the change sometimes comes with time and patience, and it doesn't always happen immediately. So that's one thing. And then another thing, and then also everybody who also think about, there's a book called How to Become a Data Head or something like that. Really good book, because I see people talking about how do they quantify what they do. Or for example, there was one person who said they want to, on their overview, they want to amplify voices, and that's cool. But how do you measure that, right? And everything in tech is a lot of things are measurable, whether it's utilizing data. So getting comfortable with understanding how to use data and talking about that in an interview, no matter what your background is, because even being a recruiter, you have to understand data. Y'all are measured by metrics, and that's data. And being able to understand those metrics and how you can already talk about it while they're thinking about it in an interview would be really dope. Because the big thing of whenever you're saying, even if you're saying, I want to come in these spaces and I want to disrupt and bring more diversity, how do you measure growth? And that's going to be the biggest thing of how do you measure this thing? So being comfortable with addressing numbers. And that's why I said to me, that book is a really good book because it's sarcastic and it's an easy read. I generally, when I introduce books,
Another phone for the apartment.
Okay.
Oh, that's something else, but no worries. But yeah, that book will help you kind of get familiar with why people use data in the first place to have provability. And that will really help you in your interviews, and also kind of how you quantify what you're seeking to do when you land there.
Yeah, 110%. Thank you, Desiree, for your insights and just overall, you gave two great book recommendations, and learning is powerful. And you're so right. Recruiting is all about metrics, but just having the power and the knowledge of knowing those numbers beforehand is gonna really take you far when it comes to your job search and just applying and impressing companies. Because again, we have a barrier, and we got to work twice as hard. So we definitely need to make sure that we're prepared and armed with knowledge. Anybody else have any insights? I think I did see a question in the chat. Lunch and learn idea, practice interviewing. I've read and learned about what to do in an interview, but need help saying my answers out loud and getting over the nerves. That's a great suggestion. We're definitely going to write down and take all your suggestions into account. And interviewing is different, right? It's different when you're practicing to yourself on Zoom, but it's even better when you're practicing to other people, whether it's someone in your community or another recruiter. So that's a great suggestion. I appreciate that. Anyone else before we wrap up?
I can just add my grain of salt here just a little bit. Based on my personal experience, I'm an account executive. Yeah, like the power of connection is, like I would say it's everything right now. We live in a very, very difficult job market right now with constant layoffs and people trying to switch careers or transition, and people with like so many people so talented with so many skills that unfortunately match any job post. But the power of connecting to someone is something that you guys should take into consideration. Every single interview I've had is because I've reached out to recruiters, but not only recruiters and like sales managers and all that, but also AEs, account executives, or developers, or whoever that's already working on the company. Just connect like a very unique connection. Like, I want to know about you and your experience in the company. Sometimes that ends up being a referral, and that gives you, like a foot on the door. So I just wanted to say that, Alex.
Thank you so much, Maria, for sharing that. And you're so right. The power of referrals, especially with how saturated the market is right now with the layoffs, knowing someone and just mentioning, hey, I was here, I was at this event, or I spoke to this person, is really going to separate you apart from the thousands of people. Because when you look at the ecosphere right now, the tech layoffs are a lot, but just having that connection and being confident enough to say, I made this networking connection and this is why I'm here, is going to be super helpful. Thank you for that sentiment, Maria. Awesome. Now, my last thing I have before I let you all go, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We are doing a Latinas in Tech Summit on May 19th, and this is going to be our virtual summit. I do have a form that I'm going to put in the chat for our raffle. So if you're interested in this, please feel free to sign up. I did put under the questions, why do you want to attend this event? If you could include Lit Recruit Lunch and Learn office hours, that'd be perfect. So thank you, everyone. It's in the chat. Any other questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out. We hope to see you in our next Lunch and Learn, and we're going to develop this a lot more as we go with some fun and exciting things for the members. If anyone ever has questions about updating their profiles or applying to jobs, please feel free to reach out. I'm also going to put my email in the chat as well. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, and happy Friday.